Welcome to our next episode of Reach Minds Thoughts for Your Life's Journey podcast. In this podcast, we will be exploring a coaching framework that introduces Female Leadership Wheel, a self-perception tool designed to help women enhance their leadership skills. The Female Leadership Wheel is particularly focused on women working in companies or other organizations. It delves into self-awareness and emphasizes the importance of women cultivating leadership skills and having a choice as well as a sense of agency, especially in a male-dominated environment. Joining me today is Lisa Ross Marcus, a leadership coach for women, mentor to female startup founders and entrepreneurs, and an expert in intercultural communication. Lisa grew up in New York and has been living in the Netherlands for the past 40 years. She has extensive experience of working within global organizations. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Nita.
I'm very excited to learn about the Female Leadership Wheel. Let's get going with it. Tell me a little bit, Lisa, about your journey and what got you interested in doing the work with female leaders.
So I've been coaching for many years, and I've coached both men and women, especially women at different stages of becoming or being leaders. And in my experience as a coach, I encountered different frameworks that really enhanced coaching. So coaching tools such as looking at motivation or looking at transferring leadership skills across different cultures or looking at influencing skills. And in my growing interest in really focusing on helping women to become better leaders, and I see my purpose as empowering women to make a difference. Mm-hmm. And thinking about this, I started to wonder, what if there was a coaching tool specifically geared towards supporting women in leadership positions? And I started to consolidate my learning, whether it was from listening to female leaders tell their stories, research I'd done reading books, listening to podcasts, my own experience coaching female leaders, talking to female leaders. And I started to try to consolidate it. And I ended up coming up with an idea of a wheel. I love the image of a wheel. It's holistic. It makes me think of a mandala. But to express, or to show rather, 8 specific areas of focus that are relevant for female leaders.
I'd love to know actually what's the philosophy that underpins the Female Leadership Wheel.
The philosophy is a belief that there are a lot of smart, talented, very committed women out there who will make great leaders and impactful leaders, that there are certain things that are holding them back. And part of this is just recurring themes I've seen in coaching women leaders or listening to women leaders, such as boundary setting, having difficulty with boundary setting, difficulty with asking for help, struggling with a need to be liked and letting that interfere with the intention of adding value, being uncomfortable with talking about her achievements, her accomplishments. That's often dismissed as, oh no, that's just bragging. And of course, a lot of this comes from the ways that we are conditioned from the time we're young girls. Don't be too loud, be modest, help others. It's important to be, a lot of girls grow up hearing they need to be pleasing people, and that still stays with us. So it's really about identifying what's holding you back from leading effectively, maybe recognizing where it came from. But as a coach, I'm not so interested in dwelling on the past.
Absolutely.
To just say, hey, that might have served you well when you were growing up or at different points in your life, but it's not serving you now. So what do we really need to look at? And that's where the coaching starts.
With the leadership wheel.
Yes. And so coming back to what does it consist of?
Yes.
And so there are 8 areas of development here. And a couple of them are, or about 2 or 3 of them are internal. So things like aligning with my values, mapping my ambitions, self-care practice. So things that we need to look into ourselves in order to do. Then there's also negotiation skills, communication skills, strategic networking, building my reputation, and mobilizing others. I think I've mentioned all 8 of them. The way the process works is that before we start the coaching engagement, the coachee does an online questionnaire. And the results of that questionnaire, which, by the way, look at both importance and strength in each of these areas. And the results of the questionnaire are used to generate an 8-page report, which is then presenting each woman with her unique female leadership wheel, which shows her self-perception. It's not an assessment, it's not a test. It's just giving a kind of a profile of, in your leadership journey, what is important for you, what is relevant right now, and how strong are you in that area. And in some areas, there are going to be quite big gaps where something is very important. It's very important for me to be strong in negotiating, but I see that I'm not so experienced in that. And in fact, I dread negotiations. So how can we start to flip that around so you come with a more positive mindset? And there's then different details we can look at, which are related to behavior, anything from how do I prepare for my negotiation? What are the things that I need to do to, in the negotiation, not only thinking about what you want, but what are the concerns and the interests of my negotiating partner? And how do we see this more as a problem-solving activity together than a kind of a battle that we're having?
How long does it take for you to unpack the female leadership wheel in respect to the 8 aspects of it?
That will depend on the scope of the engagement. If we have a short engagement of 4 to 6 sessions, generally speaking, and that's why we spend quite a bit of time before we even look at her results in really exploring, okay, where are you now in your leadership journey? In some cases, women come to coaching because they're struggling with their leadership role and responsibilities. And they want to get some more insight and some more ideas into, okay, how do I emerge from that to become a stronger leader? Sometimes they're at the start of a journey in the sense of having an aspiration to become a leader and want to figure out what's my path to get there. So in some cases, we will look at the results, and I love to always right away ask, hey, how did this land with you? Do you recognize yourself? Were there any surprises here? But then fairly quickly drilling down to, okay, you're feeling always overloaded with your work, and you don't have enough time to really do the work of being a leader, which is creating a strategy and a vision or expanding your network. What's going on there? And so in just identifying these are the key challenges, then we'll probably focus on things like self-care practice, which has to do with setting boundaries, being able to say no and being fine with that. Perhaps mobilizing others, so being able to delegate effectively. And then maybe strategic networking as well. So we usually will then drill down to 2 or 3 areas. And that can be enough. But of course, she has her report as a reference. Yeah. So even as she's evolving, she can always circle back to it as a resource. And something nice that I experienced recently was even that I got to the end of a coaching engagement with a female leader, and was our last session. I said, okay, what would you like to focus on today? And she said, I want to go back to look at my female leadership wheel results to see what has shifted for me in this time period. And indeed, there was some really astonishing changes because that's a fact of coaching, is that sometimes you start out thinking, okay, this is the issue, this is the problem I need to deal with. But actually, when we start looking at what do you want to create, it can be something quite different.
It can be. So where I'm curious is in your using the female leadership wheel, have you seen any themes that have consistently emerged that fits in with the current research of female leadership today?
So the themes that I can say, yeah, I recognize them when I read about what's going on in female leadership. There's some really key themes that come up. And one is being confident about sharing your ambitions. Because what happens often is that women feel like if I just keep my head down and do my job really well and do it perfectly, which has its own pitfalls, I will get the recognition and I will get the promotions and the opportunities that I want. And that is unfortunately not how it works. And so one of the things that can really start shifting things, and sometimes very quickly for women, is to tell your line manager, hey, I'm really eager to take on this new project or be challenged in another kind of way, or I'd actually like to move up to another position in the company. And to their great surprise, what I often hear from women is, I told this to my manager and right away he wanted to help me, or she. It's like, hey, of course, I didn't know that. Sure, let me make this contact for you. Hey, would you like this stretch assignment? So sometimes it can go quite quickly in that respect. And it seems like a huge revelation. Oh, that's all I have to do is tell other people about my ambitions. And then it's not only one person, but it's every opportunity you have, because you never know who can open that door for you.
Yeah. It's interesting because as you described that, and I thought, gosh, 20 years ago, women, even going on leadership program, one of the things they echoed was, oh, I've got to keep my head down, I've got to be competent, then they'll notice me. And I feel a bit sad that still in the 2024, 25, there are still that concept around. And I'm also wondering whether with the generational differences, Generational Z, which is probably different from the baby boomers.
I think there's a whole lot of other sort of reverberations that happen. Just hearing what you just said about feeling like, oh, I need to keep my head down and show my competence. So one of the other traps that women fall into is being perfectionist. And that can really slow things down and be quite damaging because it runs a risk of, first, incredible overwork, a need to control everything, a sense that it's quite stressful.
Yep.
It makes women get very lost in the details.
Yep.
Instead of seeing the bigger picture of things. And so that's one of the things that also happens from this idea of, oh, I just need to work really hard. So what women really need to learn, and I really say it as learning, because we all need to keep learning all the time, is to accept that as a leader, you're going to make mistakes. And so the question is not, how can I make sure I never make a mistake? But it's, how can I cope with making a mistake as a leader? And that has to do with accepting responsibility, seeing what it is that you can do to remedy that mistake, and you might need to get help from other people, and to be willing to really look at, okay, what can I learn from this? Because that is a core characteristic of leadership. The other pitfall that can happen when you're just very focused on doing your job really well and being the expert in your job is that it can also prevent you from accelerating your career path, because if you're doing your job so well and you're not expressing your ambitions to
Mm.
grow, then you'll be left in that job because people who are in the decision making role will be like, oh, she's doing fine. She likes it there. Let's just leave her. So women need to see themselves more and the work that they're doing more in connection with what is the bigger picture of what my organization is trying to accomplish and how am I adding value to that.
I think it is at that sort of strategic level, as well as putting their head above the parapet and saying, what does the landscape look like? And as you were talking, I remember years ago, somebody shared with me the 5 Ps, which touches on what you're saying, that women tend to do quite a lot. And I'm sure that comes out of where when we don't do self-caring because we're busy pleasing others or we're proving ourselves or we're perfecting, as you were saying, or we're performing, and we might even be pretending for ourselves. And I realized that women, female leaders, can get into a trap around that. And it's almost, as I'm sitting here thinking, is you need to say to them, they need to say to themselves is, what do I want? What's the impact do I want to make? And how can I be vulnerable? Because asking for what you want does make you vulnerable, because people can also turn around and say, no, you can't. My experience is generally when women ask for what they want, they tend to get it. But there is that vulnerability that occurs in that space, just in the asking, really.
Well, I agree with you that it does take some vulnerability to ask for what you want. But what I think is more important is getting comfortable with the no.
Yeah, yeah.
And to recognize, yeah, not everybody's going to say yes all the time, but not to let that discourage you.
Mm, mm.
And I think this is really striking at the heart of what it takes to cultivate leadership skills and to not give up at the first rejection or maybe more rejections, but to keep your eye on the ball of, and that's why aligning with my values is part of the female leadership wheel, is really understanding what is important to me. What do I want to take responsibility for? What is the impact I want to make? And it's no guarantee that it's going to be a straight road. You can get yourself in situations where you feel like some of your core values are not being met in the work you're doing. But that doesn't necessarily mean to jump ship, to say, okay, I've got to leave here. Sometimes that could be the outcome. It's also to recognize, okay, I may not be getting what I need right now. What is within my power to shift that, to get more of what I need? Or what am I looking at down the road? So, what am I willing to trade off now to get what I want or to be able to make the impact that I want in the future? So, basically, what do I need to do first?
Yeah. And it sounds to me that having that conversation with ourselves around that, we need a sounding board to be able to do that. Because I think it's a tough self analysis that often we're not able to do except
Yeah.
with support, I think. So,
Yes.
to that end, what kind of tips and resources would you offer or suggest to women who want to feel more empowered in the workspace?
I first off want to say that, and this really speaks to my own philosophy as a female leadership coach, is know that your greatest resource is the power that you grant to yourself. So, what I mean by that is, first of all, look at what can I do? What is possible for me? Even if it's something really small, but to know that the more power, more permission we give ourselves to ask for what we want, to set our boundaries, to say, I need time to recharge my batteries, and I'm going to take that, the more impact we're going to have, and the more we're going to actually enjoy being leaders. Because, yeah, of course, we need to really get fed by that. We need to get nurtured by that. Of course, you and I both know, Nita, coaching is a great resource. And coming back to what you said, is a support, a safe space to make this kind of, you could say, analysis, because that's the role of the coach, is to disrupt thinking and to get you out of old thought patterns. And so in terms of, for female leaders, an old thought pattern that needs to be disrupted often is, I can't delegate to my team because they're already overburdened with work. I hear this a lot. So that means taking everything on myself and then not being able to really do my job as a leader. And guess what? Not only do you suffer, but that reinforces negative ideas that women can't lead. And to realize this when we don't set those boundaries. So something as simple as reframing delegating by looking at, hey, what's something that is really fun for me that I could share that fun with someone else? Or what is something that would be a stretch assignment that I'd help someone grow? So to start thinking about things differently than just, oh no, I can't do that, I'll feel so guilty because they're so overworked already.
Yeah, I can hear that amongst a lot of women leaders who've done that. I can't possibly delegate. I must be taking care of everyone in that process, and the person that they're least taking care of is themselves.
Yeah. And that's a recipe to really get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
So apart from that, I would say build your support network, and that will be in your work environment, colleagues, peers, people who are knowledgeable about certain things that are important for you. Get a mentor, a sponsor. So just to elucidate quickly the difference between mentors and sponsors, a mentor is a kind of advisor, a sponsor is someone who advocates for you when you're not in the room. Both are very important. And I would say be kind to yourself, and know that, yeah, you're going to have tough days. You're going to make mistakes, but understand this is part of what it takes to be a leader for both men and women.
I completely agree with you on what you've just said. And what pops into my mind, it was an earlier episode I did with somebody, and they very kindly shared me their mantra, which is, be yourself because everybody else is taken. And I just think that's such a wonderful phrase to remember for women, acceptance of themselves and what they need to do in terms of the impact that they want to make, both in terms of self and others as well, in the environment.
Is to recognize, yes, be yourself, be kind to yourself, keep recognizing you need to grow. So sometimes we mix up being authentic with just sticking to what we know about ourselves. And that authenticity, I believe, has to do with recognizing your values and trying to show up with your values as much as you can, but recognizing part of it is going to be doing stuff you're not comfortable with, but it doesn't mean you're being inauthentic.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Lisa, for your female leadership wheel. I think it gives people some insights into what that entails. I appreciate your sharing your female leadership wheel, and I wish you luck with it as you develop more and more people who are doing this work.
Thank you, Nita. It's been great speaking with you.
If you're interested in working with me, connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or www.nitasharma.com. And if you enjoyed the podcast, why not consider subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you have access to your podcast, and leave a review.